The following is a service announcement. You are about to watch part 2 of a 2-part series entitled Tony Robbins and Me. In this episode, I discuss some more of Tony's techniques, as well as how it all went so very, very wrong. Now let's get back to the action. Another classic Tony technique is the use of celebrities. Now, when I was running the seminars, we would go out and we had a big long mailing list, and we'd find every celebrity who'd ever shown any interest or gone to any Tony Robbins seminar, and we'd invite them for free. So they all came for free. That's nothing new. A lot of industries do that. Celebrities create interest. When I was there the first time I went to one of these, Carrie Fisher was there, and Tony, of course, had her come right up on stage. And he showed some neurolinguistic techniques on her, and at that point, Carrie was very skinny, had brassy hair, and was obviously out of her mind on coke. I could reel off a list of celebrities I know that had gone, but understand this, out of all the celebrities that were invited for free or had shown an interest, most of them never came back. There was very few that actually caught on to the whole thing he was teaching and came back. There were lots of celebrities I invited that would walk out midway through the first day of the seminar. So don't think everybody's, oh, Tony. It wasn't like that. I don't know whether it's like it that now. I kind of think it probably is because he's teaching the same thing. Here's a clip. This woman that they're talking to just told her story that she was in some kind of cult and subject to a lot of sexual abuse. And here, of course, as part of her treatment, she meets some celebrities backstage at some kind of VIP area or something.
I was sobbing uncontrollably, not because, I was because of the pain that you'd gone through, but because of the strength that you had. Certain things that happened in my life, in my past, not to your extent, but that I've had to go through and let go of as well. And I came here last year, and that set me free.
To me, what was just so inspiring is that you had the courage to get up and speak about something that is so unfathomable to all of us. Oh my God, I can't. And so the thing that struck me the most is that you were able to forgive. Most of us walk around in this world with such anger and such pain and such hurt.
I guess that's got to be extremely therapeutic. You go through and have this huge admission of all this terrible stuff that happened in your life, and she was abused for years as a child. Then you go backstage and you go to the VIP area and you get to meet a couple of grade C celebrities. I don't know if that's part of the treatment or what, but that's not all that untypical at a Tony Robbins seminars, the ones I went to. Even as the celebrities were walking out the door, people wanted to talk to them, and we as staff were often running after them, trying to talk them to come back in, or getting angry at them because they weren't going through the entire program. That's kind of a typical approach to Tony, and I can show that again and again, that if you're not committed, then you can't go through the whole program. It's your fault if you don't go through the whole program. It's not Tony's fault because he's teaching nothing but the truth, and you're walking out on him. You can even see this if you've ever seen the ridiculous amount of money he charges for these seminars. This 6-day one, what is it called? Date with Destiny. Date with Tony. I don't know why it's Date with Destiny. But the price for this is anything between $4,000 and $8,000, and that doesn't include room and board or flight. So these people on the floor are paying $8,000. You look at that room, there's millions of dollars floating around. And Tony Robbins' training is really just for the wealthy because nobody else can fucking afford it. He used to charge $1,000 an hour for individual therapy. Which was, I don't know. And his justification for charging so much, nobody who worked for him could afford it, that's for sure, was that the more money somebody spends, the more they are impacted, the more they show their desire to want to change. So if they're more invested, they get a bigger return on their investment. I'm sorry, it's so stupid listening to it now, but I was like, yeah, when I was a kid, He took it even further than that. When we were doing the seminars, he would often require certain things, and that's no surprise from celebrities, but he wasn't really a celebrity at that point. He was speaking in front of 500-700 people and making a lot of money, but he expected a bigger limo, a better car to pick him up, more people to serve him. And if you did all that, you get a return on your investment. He'd feel good about himself and you'd get a better seminar. That is exactly what he said. The better you treat me, the better I have, the better hotel room, the better food, you get a better seminar, so you make more money. That kind of circular logic is typical Tony. And in watching this film, I saw several instances of it. He watches what he says a little bit more, but kind of, I feel like I'm looking at the same guy. And he's also really, really controlling when it comes to money. We couldn't make any money, so the guy John Grinder, who taught Tony everything he knew, we had to get another revenue stream. So we went out and we tried to get him to allow us to promote him. We spent a lot of time and money getting him to try and to be his promoter. And he said, yeah, we were ready to sign. Tony heard about it and put a stop to it. Now, we don't work for Tony. We're a separate promotion thing, but he somehow thought it was a conflict of interest. And that's total horseshit. He was afraid because Grinder would come down and somebody would ask him at some point, what do you think about Tony? And Grinder would say he's doing everything wrong. Even with NLP being as ineffective as it is, Tony was going way past what was logical to do with it. Tony Robbins is a very painful chapter in my life. When you invest so deeply in something, when you totally buy off on something and it comes out to be the way it was, let me tell you what caused me to go over the edge. I was on edge anyway over all this stuff, over the fact, I couldn't get any more money, we couldn't get any more money. I was getting my $1,000 a month, that was it. I was working 60 hours a week, I was giving everything. What caused me to leave him was because these events. Tony talks every now and then about how he taught the U.S. Army how to shoot. He modeled somebody who knew how to shoot, and he showed the rest of the Army how to do it, and they scores doubled and all this nonsense. It's all more or less horseshit. He was involved in some experiments to make the U.S. Army shoot better, but he had a very minor role. Blackhat has an article on it, and I can say everything this guy lists on Blackhat, I can verify as being absolutely true, because that's exactly what happened. Tony would talk a lot about the big picture with us. In the big picture, in the end, I got to credit my friend Bennett, who I worked with, the big picture. And here's the big picture. See it? It's Tony's house. That's the big picture. So Tony would often talk at the seminars, I just bought a new 10,000-foot house. And it was, if you've ever seen this place, you drive LA to San Diego, look up to the left. You'll see it on the hill. It's called Castle Del Mar. It's this god-awful stucco thing with this bizarre turret in it. So here's the inside of it. I've actually sat right there a couple of days before Christmas, and that was the day I decided I was going to leave him forever. And the reason was, it was the big picture. It was Tony leasing a house where he constantly said he bought a house. When we came in, we were supposed to have significant FaceTime with Tony to discuss these issues. He walked out the door. He gave everybody one of those big false love kind of hugs that he gives, and then he walked out the door. He says, well, I got to go buy a limo. Your meeting's with them, and there were a couple of managers there. So he left. He went to go buy a limo. He wound up leasing the limo, but he said he bought the limo. Typical Tony. And so we sat there, and I went over all these things with him, and I went over this management. I said, look, this didn't happen, this happened sort of, but all these things didn't happen the way he says them. And I'll go over some of that in the firewalk and board breaking. I'll talk about some of his board breaking lies. This is what the guy said to me. He said, I know it sounds like lies to us, but Tony's speaking truth into being. I looked at him, I said, what the fuck are you talking about? And he said, look, this is the way it is, and Tony speaks it, he believes it'll become, and there was some new age bullshit in there that it will become true in the end if you believe it and you speak it into, like, somehow you're speaking the world into your truth. And I looked at him, I said, so you telling me Tony Robbins has a different kind of truth than the truth that all the rest of us live under? And he said, well, yeah, I guess so. And really, figuratively at that moment, I walked out the door. I left the job the next day, and when you invest totally like I did in Tony Robbins and Terry Black Productions and Robbins Research Institute, and it all falls through, you're left in a very deep hole because you gave everything you had. You're exhausted, you've lost all of your finances, everything's gone. And yet I was still under the Tony Robbins influence when I left. And Tony speaks a thing of calling, what did he call it? In any words, he said you speak wealth into being or something like that. So he would encourage people to go out and buy stuff they couldn't afford, because then they'd have to work really hard to be able to pay it off, and that would create wealth for them. That's good thinking right there. And I bought a $25,000 sports car. I bought it with my parents' credit. It wiped out whatever little money I had left. The only job I could get was as a salesman, and I suffer from severe social anxiety disorder. So I had to drive around in my little $25,000 sports car all over Orange County and Los Angeles to all these stupid gift stores. I sold shit like Joan Rivers greeting cards and Chippendale's postcards and just a bunch of rock and roll posters and crap like this to these silly little gift stores. It was a terrible existence. And after a few months of that, I basically gave the car back to the dealer and paid him $10,000 to take it off my hands. Created another deep hole for me. And then as summer came along, I realized I hadn't written anything in a year and a half. And I'm a writer. And that produced so much anxiety in me that I had to rethink my entire existence. And from that point on, I became a writer. And I wish it had been an easier road. I know Tony Robbins people will say, well, that's because Tony got a light fire on it. No. It was a reaction against what Tony Robbins taught. Tony, you owe me at least $1,000 in return fees for dissatisfaction with the seminars. I want it paid. Which would probably be more like $5,000 with interest. But whatever, dude. Look, if you're thinking about going to one of these seminars, my only advice to you is because the people that are pro seminars, it's like bullying. It's this aggressive positivity where you're not allowed to see anything negative. It's all going to be positive, and somehow that'll make your world positive. Go to the cheap one. He's got some cheaper ones that are around $1,000 for a day, or the Firewalk one or something. Go to one of the cheap ones to see what you're getting into. For God's sakes, don't invest $8,000, $12,000 to go to one seminar with this guy, because you'll get all hyped up, you'll use his techniques, and then you'll come out and say, I wanted $5 million in my bank account, but when I came here I had $5, but I've used all his principles for 6 months, but I still only have $5 in his bank account. And then you get really depressed, because everything you invested in proved to be nothing. I've counseled enough of those people on the phone. I know what the fuck I'm talking about. My advice is to take it easy, okay? If you want to go for it, but try not to destroy your pocketbook. Let me tell you one final story that kind of, it's so perfect. All of our stuff was signed Robbins Research Institute. If you go onto his website, you'll see Robbins Research Institute. We were in a 10-foot by 10-foot room, me and the 3 people who worked for this company. And one day, in walks a very nice retired couple. They were probably both 75. And they said they were in San Francisco on vacation, and they decided, hey, let's drive down to the Robbins Research Institute in Los Angeles. So here they were standing there, and they said, well, we thought we'd drive down and maybe you could give us a tour of the Institute. What the fuck was I going to say? So I came out with some story that, yeah, well, most of it's down in San Diego, which there wasn't. They had an office twice as big. But it's like the way everything's approached with Tony is it was like there was a little experiments going on in the back room, and somebody had electrodes on their head, and they were, And there was none of that. And there's this couple standing there. Could you give us a tour of the Institute? That's it. It's perfect. That's Tony. The Institute is a 10-foot by 10-foot room. The Emperor has no clothes. And the Emperor's name is Tony Robbins. Okay, my friends, that brings us to the end of Tony Robbins and me. If you've had a similar experience or a differing experience, feel free to use the comments down there And stay tuned for the firewalking and board breaking episode. Feel free to look around on this channel. Feel free to subscribe. Until then, I will see you next time. My usual sign off, strength and honor.